Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sarah, and welcome to another edition of ETHPrague 2024 Talks. I'm here with Nelson. We know each other for how long now? 3 years?
Probably 4 years,
4 years?
something like that.
Yeah. It's your third ETHPrague, is that right?
Yes.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. I need to give him the microphone. Hello, Nelson. Could you introduce yourself to us?
I'm Nelson Medina, based in Barcelona, mainly working at Materium, working on tokenization of real-world assets, which is now the big buzzword, but we've been working on it for many, many years, explaining to people how actually tokenizing hard stuff like this building is the way to go for the future. It was actually the initial purpose of Ethereum and the smart contract-based blockchain, essentially. So very happy now that finally the world is catching up and we're doing this.
That's amazing. Adoption seems to be a big topic, mass adoption during this Congress. How are you finding adoption going in particularly that line of work that you just mentioned? Because you got into Ethereum really early, right?
Yes. So I think people need to realize that so far it's almost like we were just in beta version of what the blockchain could do.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, we can do the cartoon NFTs, the DeFi stuff, the tokens, the ICOs. But when you compare to actual TradFi and commodities trading and real estate, like real estate is 300 trillion. 3 trillion of which are transacting every year.
Yeah.
That's real money. That's
Yeah.
what the actual world moves on. You know, how many containers are arriving to Czech Republic every day.
Yeah.
That's what we should use the blockchain for.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the way that I see that actual adoption. Then on top of that, this composability, like easy to use thing, why can't I use the blockchain to just buy a house straight away, rent a house with a click of a token, signing a transaction, money moves, and the agreements and the contracts are all set up in a way that makes it fully legally compliant. So that's kind of like the way that I see the future happening. And you know, we've been working on it for many, many years, and now we're starting to get the tools to actually make it happen. We see the L2s, the ZK rollup. The experience is actually fantastic. It doesn't feel clunky. It doesn't feel like using a blockchain. And I think that's what it's going to be in the future, like where it's going to be like a database. You don't know which database the systems use, but you use those systems every day. You go to the shop, you buy online, it just works. And that's what the blockchain should be and will be.
I love that. In terms of, you mentioned the future, so in terms of affecting, the real life of like everyday people, we had a cool conversation yesterday on day one of ETHPrague, which was about, obviously you're from Barcelona, so the Catalan question, the kind of like self-determination, decentralization, but also you told me that you were moving recently, so like the hilarity around the regulations of the housing market, etc. How do you think, like either like in your personal like socio-cultural bubble or from like examples around the world, where is like the impact going to be, do you think, on like social structure and the way that people live?
One of the things that I focus on mainly is around real estate and land tokenization. Very connected, but two separate matters. Real estate is very interesting. Like the situation with the market now, where it's literally because all the boomers have all the assets and actually limiting how much you can build. Because you could really use new technologies and build a house for like 30K, 40K that is perfectly functional, amazing, like comfort anywhere in the world with like 3D printing housing or like modular structures. Like it's just like, with panels that are pre-made, prefab, like you have all those technologies that are not necessarily allowed to be used because we want to keep up the price of the housing high.
Yeah.
So there's going to need to have an evolution of the legislation because the young can't get married, have kids, and buy a house as easily. But I feel like now using blockchain and technologies that we have, we can create new structures where, for example, instead of depending on debt, meaning loans, why can't we do things where we change the dynamic where, your uncle, your grandma, they put 20K for you to buy a house, but instead of like you owe them the money, maybe they own 10% of your house.
Yeah.
And maybe they get the upside once you sell the house 10 years later.
Yeah.
And we actually, we have the technology with blockchain to actually fractionalize ownership to create what I call liquid co-ownership. And then what if we could do that at the side of like a building or like a community or like a village where, everybody could own a little bit of everything else. That would create connection. Maybe I own 5% of the baker. Maybe I own 5% of the cafe. I own a little bit of everything else. Like you winning is me winning.
Yeah.
We're all together in this. We all own a little bit of everything else, which then allows that I'm not going to be jealous if you win because actually we own a little bit of everything else together.
Yeah.
And then that allows this thing where it's not a relationship of like, I own all the asset and then, it's like rent seeking and, like I make all the value out of it. And then you as the tenant could kind of like, you're not going to invest in this place because it's
Yeah.
not yours. Why I could do something that is like kind of like rent to buy, but instead of like you having to do the whole thing to get 100% to actually own the asset, over time you could own a little bit and then you have interest like creating things or like making it better, actually taking care of it, becoming more like a guardian, more like a steward of everything else. So I think creating more possibilities for people to own things together and manage them with a solid legal structure around it and kind of like taking the cooperatives model, the union models, the guilds, like even things, the history of the guilds and
Yeah.
all the systems,
Yeah.
kind of like bringing that back in a 21st century manner where it's a little bit more flexible, where if I enter into a project there's not that huge barrier where once I'm in I have to be in for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
Because we're in a world that is more mobile now.
Yeah.
And maybe I can take my village token from Barcelona and I move to Costa Rica or I move to Sri Lanka or I move somewhere else. And then I could move that ownership depending on where I want to go. So I'm really looking forward to this experimentation of creating new ways of owning and managing and investing in things together,
Yeah.
which I think is the way to be.
I love that. It's not the kind of like using dictatorial false models like communism on like forcing people to cooperate and share everything. It's actually adapting to the very kind of hunter-gatherer evolutionary like nature of human societies that's very kind of decentralized, very fluid, and actually enabling people to cooperate together and giving them financial incentive to do so. I absolutely love it. And you see, this is one of the reasons why Nelson and I are friends for many years now. We always discuss these things. Nelson, one last question. How have you seen the debate, because you're a veteran of ETHPrague, how have you seen the debate around Ethereum and all the topics discussed here evolve? And what do you think that maybe next year is going to bring?
What I think is interesting is that you can see now that the TradFi people have been looking at it from outside and maybe a little bit from the inside secretly. And now that they've really seen what this technology can be, they're actually coming very seriously to do things together. And I very much welcome it because they understand some of the issues that we've talked about. They understand that you need lawyers. They understand that you need the right kind of structures. They understand that, if you structure the product carefully, then they can actually scale to the size of the world. So I'm very much welcoming this influx of more like traditional finance, and I feel like there's no need to have this separation and dichotomy between DeFi and TradFi. I'm sure that yesterday I was talking to somebody that come from more like a commodity background. She was like, yeah, in some of the commodity domains, depending on which one, it could be more like food, wheat, etc., or like more like real estate stuff. It depends what you're looking for. But some of them, they are very much welcoming 24/7 trading, right? Like those are capabilities that you are bringing to them that are like, oh, this is interesting. Our company has been also very connected to the UK judiciary and the judges, and we spent years to explain to them the benefit of the blockchain, and they love it. It's like all the transactions in there, all the proof, all the contract out there. It's great for them.
Yeah.
So I very much welcome this understanding and this influx of people that bring their own skills. And it could be finance, it could be law, but also welcome from all kinds of fields like design, marketing, etc. So I feel like now it kind of like left the realm of like the 100% zeros and ones and
Yeah.
developers and numbers, and actually now you see more interesting adoption from all kinds of background that are actually looking at it where, oh, I can actually use it to do some things. The same way that the last wave was the artists being like, oh wait, we can use that technology and experiments. So now we get this more this explosion of the industry and more interesting real use cases